The Chargers showed a lot of toughness and grit in their loss to the San Francisco 49ers, but let me be clear, there are no moral victories in football.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 6 seasons, but this is our 5th season as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys so much for making this your first listen. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and also follow the show for free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from. And David, it's a big one today. We're getting into our buy or sell, looking at the biggest Chargers storylines after another tough game and a loss to the 49ers. And first, I want to talk about moral victories. Brandon Staley talked about it a little bit. Can the Chargers feel good about a loss to the 49ers, given what their, circumstances were in that game? And we'll also talk about if injuries were indeed the biggest reason that the Chargers did lose that game to the 49ers on Sunday Night Football, and maybe potentially getting Keenan Allen and Mike Williams back against the Kansas City Chiefs, and if this Chiefs game feels like a must-win game for the Chargers to make the playoffs. But today's episode of Locked On Chargers is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. And David, there was some moral victory talk with Brandon Staley after the game in his post-game press conference, and he wasn't buying it. So my question to you is, with the Chargers circumstances, with the injuries they face coming into it, with just how loaded that San Francisco 49ers team is, do you agree with Staley, or the buy or sell is this? The Chargers should be able to take a moral victory away from the game against the 49ers.
I'm selling it completely. I'm sorry, but moral victories don't count for anything. I mean, they don't help you in the win column. I think what you can look at this and say is there's a few things from this 49ers game that you can definitely be proud of and be happy about. Some positive trends, some things that you can take away and say, hey, these are things that hopefully we can multiply going forward. But as far as moral victories are concerned, no, I don't believe in moral victories. Ultimately, they don't really mean anything.
And this is what Staley had to say about it. We didn't come in here to get a pat on the back for playing hard. That's not what this league's about. We came here to win tonight. The effort and the toughness of our team was good enough, and that's what I was looking for. Yeah, I mean, that checks out to me. I feel the same way. I'm definitely selling it, because the thing is like me and you were talking about before the show, like it's great. It's nice to see young players, nice to see backups and players coming in, having to play more snaps than they're used to, and competing with one of the best teams in the NFC for sure in this game, and a fully loaded San Francisco 49ers defense for the most part. That was a positive, and there's definitely positives to take away. I thought we maybe were a little harsh on the Chargers yesterday because I picked them to lose by 10 points, right? And we're saying, hey, they should have won. They should have. But at the same time, they were undermanned. They never really should have even been in this game. They did a lot. We knew they had to play a perfect game in this one to get a win, and they just weren't able to do that. But the reason they had, such a small margin for error is because of how many different injuries they had going into it. And we'll talk about the injuries and their kind of, the factor they had on this game. But at the same time, to me, David, it's more about just tangible things that you can take forward, because yes, you can be like, hey, we fought hard. We did all these things. We were tough. We were gritty, all of those things. But that's not going to win you the game against Kansas City Chiefs, right? It might keep you close, and it might not get you blown out. But the Chargers just need some dudes to come back at a certain point. And that's a hard thing about moral victories. It's like, hey, just winning or just being close to the 49ers doesn't give you more confidence that, oh, hey, we can go beat the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football this weekend. Like, at a certain point, you just need more people.
Well, and Daniel, like we were also talking about before we started recording here, is the Chargers have expectations this year. And, they just don't have, the situation where they can accept a moral victory and be happy about it with the team that they assembled. It's just not something that they can afford to do right now. They're supposed to be doing bigger and better things. So no moral victories from this game. And yes, the injuries have definitely played a factor, but how much of a factor? That's the question.
Exactly. I mean, let's buy or sell this. I mean, Joe Lombardi took a lot of heat, and deservedly so, especially for how that second half played out. I mean, running the ball as much as they did on first down, it felt like he didn't really give the offensive chance. and they needed every chance they could get with the injuries that they had. But this is the buy or sell. The Chargers' injuries were actually the biggest reason that they lost to the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really easy to say that it is the biggest reason. I mean, because there were some very significant injuries. It's really, really hard to go up against that team without having your number one wide receiver and your number two wide receiver, your top tackle, even your backup tackle. I mean, it's it's a really, really tall task. But no, that is not the reason why. So I'm selling it. The reason why the Chargers lost this game is because they couldn't get off the field on 3rd and long on defense. And they had really ineffective play calling on first down, like you just mentioned. I mean, those repeated 2-yard runs, the negative 1-yard runs on first down were not working. And it just, it was a large reason why there was a lot of drive killers. They were killing the drives before they could get started because they weren't passing to set up the run. And I think that's something they really needed to do, and they did not in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm buying it from the perspective of, I mean, the Chargers just in the end didn't have enough horsepower. They didn't have enough firepower offensively to put up enough points against this defense. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a little bit fluky in the first half. You get 3 points off a block punt, and you also get 3 points off a fumble recovery. It's not like the offense lit up the scoreboard. They scored 10 points basically on their own in
Yeah.
the first half, and it was a beautifully orchestrated drive. But the 49ers defense buckled in. Like, as much
Yeah,
as,
they did.
Joe Lombardi definitely played a huge factor in at least not being able to produce one, maybe 2 scoring drives in the second half, it was always going to be tough.
Yeah.
It was going to be a tall task for this team, especially because you ended up missing Gerald Everett. And that's what we talked about a little bit yesterday, because at that point,
Yeah.
your biggest offensive skill players right then, Austin Eckler and Josh Palmer, that's pretty much it. That's not enough to go up against that 49ers defense. And the reason I say it maybe is the biggest reason they lost to the 49ers is just because if you're telling me those situations are playing out almost identically, and then you're telling me that the Chargers have Joey Bosa, like the 49ers had Nick Bosa, the Chargers had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, right? And Donald
Yeah,
Parham
they probably
potentially.
win that game. Yeah, they probably win that game.
I don't think they get shut out in the second half. You know what I
No.
mean? And
Yeah.
maybe they even score more and are able to capitalize on more of those opportunities in the first half.
Yeah, it's a great
Doesn't
point.
mean it doesn't mean they shouldn't have done it. They still could
Right.
have, but the
Right.
margin for error was so small that, like, even thinking, oh, hey, they should be able to do these things was going to be a tall task for this team. That's a really, really good defense who's
Yeah.
finally getting healthy, even though they were missing still a couple of key guys. Doesn't matter. I mean, the Chargers offense just didn't have enough juice because the protection started falling apart at the end. And the things that worked for the Chargers in the first half, they either didn't go back to or just straight up didn't work in the
Yeah.
second half. And this is not to take any blame away from Joe Lombardi. Joe Lombardi had a tough, almost impossible kind of game plan to set up for this game with the guys
Yeah.
that he had, right? Then you lose Gerald Everett. Yeah, you're missing your starting right and left tackle. That makes a difference. You're missing your top 2 receivers and your only speed threat at receiver. That makes a difference. You're missing Josh Kelly. You can't run the ball at all. He has been your best rusher so far this year in a small sample size. I think if the Chargers are healthy, I think they win that game. And that's not to make an excuse for them. Daniel Popper did put out a great article with excuses as opposed to explanations. I hate excuses. This Chargers injuries team, a season for the Chargers, who have been one of the most injured teams ever, at least since the year 2000.
Yeah.
Like, this might be the worst, which is crazy to say. But, like, I think they win that game if they're fully healthy, or even just have half of the guys back and have half of those contributors. Because that's not even to talk about Tito, right? Losing 2 defensive tackles and only being down to 3 who had to play the rest of the entire game. You think that has a factor in the game when the 49ers ran for 107 yards in the second half? 100%. The good news is the Chargers might have some reinforcements coming back, maybe sooner than expected, and potentially Keenan Allen and Mike Williams could both be back this week for a giant game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're going to talk about that, and if this kind of just feels like a must-win game now, coming up right after this. But first, I need to tell you guys about my favorite daily fantasy site, and of course, I'm talking about PrizePicks. Right now, guys, if you're looking for PrizePicks projections that you can select this week, you can find the Chargers game already. You can go Justin Herbert more than or less than 260.5 passing yards, or Austin Eckler more or less than 42.5 rushing yards. That's what PrizePicks is. That's what changes it from a lot of daily fantasy sites where, you just don't know what you're going against. You're just picking players and hoping they're better than the players you don't know you're going against on the other sides. With PrizePicks, you pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you win. And not only do you win, you can also win up to 10 times your money on any entry. It's not just the NFL. You can go NBA, you can go NHL, golf, MMA, even college football. There's a ton of choices at PrizePicks and a ton of projections you can go against. So make sure you guys download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON to sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. I also need to tell you guys about something that I really, really am fond of, and that is SimpliSafe Home Security. It's something that I thought about doing for a long time, getting home security for my home, getting cameras and things like that for my home. What I didn't know is what I was always going to see, because with SimpliSafe, you're getting peace of mind. When you're gone, you know that you can check in on the HD camera set up at your house at any time remotely from your phone. And right now, guys, they have a huge special going on that you guys can take advantage of. Right now, Locked On Chargers listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it, especially because you don't ever know what you're going to see with your cameras. Because I also found out this week with my SimpliSafe cameras that my dog was eating my favorite t-shirt. So I had to change up the wardrobe again today a little bit this week. So that's great when your dog 5 years in decides that they want to start eating your favorite t-shirts. But with SimpliSafe, you get whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real, and even has hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. I mean, this is something I love, use every single day, and just gives me the peace of mind, especially when I'm not home. So make sure you guys don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that I recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL. This is their biggest discount of the year, guys. So make sure you don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, David. Well, we do need to get into the rest of our buy or sells here, including a very nice buy or sell. We'll see kind of how we answer it here. But Brandon Staley has said that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams will be back at practice this week. To what capacity, he doesn't know yet. But just getting them both on the field is obviously a huge step in the right direction for the Chargers, who have been missing them dearly over the last few weeks. And now they potentially could get them back. Fingers crossed. But the buy or sell is this: both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams will play Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs.
First of all, hallelujah. Hallelujah to the fact that we are finally getting an opportunity to see Keenan Allen
light at
and
the end of the
Mike
tunnel.
Williams on the practice field at the same time for the first time since pretty much week 1. So, first of all, yes, very, very excited about that. Unfortunately, I'm going to sell it because I have to see Keenan Allen practice every single day this week, and I don't know if we're going to see that. And I just don't know if they're willing to put him out there this time until they know he is 100%. And they shouldn't. You know, they definitely cannot afford to play around with this. If there's any kind of, discomfort or any kind of just feeling that is not quite there yet, you can't push it. I do feel a lot better about Mike Williams's propositions of playing. He looked like he was doing a pretty, thorough workout before the San Francisco game. He looked like he was in good spirits, looked like he was in good shape. I think there's a good chance that we do see Mike Williams back. I'm a little bit more hesitant to say that we'll see Keenan Allen back with it. I would love to see it. I just don't know how confident I am that we are going to see it. So yeah, I'm going to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I made it both of those dudes too, just because I think that's the tough thing. Because I do think we'll see Mike Williams back. I mean, I think they didn't put him on injured reserve for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And that was to hopefully get him back within the 4-week time frame that he'd have to be out if they put him on injured reserve. And he just seemed like he's in really good spirits. Like when you talk to Keenan Allen about it, I mean, it's just, you never really get good vibes off what he's telling you, right? It's almost always bad news.
There's some anguish there for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. And the one thing is too with Mike Williams, we've seen him fight through stuff. We've seen him come back from injuries,
he's a really tough
and be able to rehab 100%. So I think with him, especially since it's an ankle, right, a lot different than a hamstring, which is much more, I think fragile, at least in the recovery process, me saying as a sports doctor, but at least just in
volatile.
My experience.
Yeah.
100%. I think Mike Williams plays. I have no confidence that Keenan Allen plays at this
I hope
point.
so.
Have to see
right. We hope to see him.
Who I am hoping really, really plays is Gerald Everett, who is officially day-to-day from Brandon Staley. But the biggest reason for me is because we had to watch Trey McKitty, and the Trey McKitty experiment really unfold last week against the 49ers on Sunday Night Football. So the buy or sell is this: Trey McKitty, the Chargers' second-year tight end, is not ready for meaningful snaps on this offense.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. Unfortunately, he just doesn't seem very comfortable out there running routes. He doesn't feel comfortable out there in space. He had a pretty much a guaranteed touchdown
Yeah,
where Justin Herbert hit him in stride. He drops it. I mean, that was that was a killer. That was just really deflating there. And the unfortunate thing is we've seen that before.
yeah.
He's just not a pass catcher that you feel very confident in. And so that's the reason why I have to buy it, because and also the other thing is he was brought in here, Daniel, to be a blocking tight end,
That's the thing.
and that has regressed this year. I mean, and I think that has had a negative impact on the rushing offense. So those two things are not working in Trey McKitty's favor, unfortunately.
And the really sucky thing is like there's a ton of receiving tight ends who have been better blockers this year than Trey McKitty has, who was supposed to be that hard nosed guy. We knew when he came in he was a little undersized. He was going to have to gain some weight, going to have to gain some strength.
Yeah.
He was never meant to be the focal point of the Chargers passing attack, and I think they felt good about that, knowing that they had Donald Parham and Gerald Everett. Well, Donald Parham's out of the picture for the foreseeable future. We'll see if he comes back this year. I mean, I wouldn't be bullish on it considering the
Yeah.
timeline that's gone on with him so far. Trey McKitty's not ready to play on this offense. I'm fully selling that, or buying the fact that he's not ready for it, I guess.
Yeah.
2 drops and 7 catches so far this year. I mean, even if it's not a touchdown, he dropped the easiest 30-yard reception he's ever going to have
Oh
in his
yeah.
life. And it's just one of those things where if he was a dominant butt kicking tight end blocking, it would be different. And you could definitely argue the upside there. He
Right.
just hasn't. And that's what he was
Mhm.
brought in to do. And he's just been really, really poor in run blocking this season and has really derailed a lot of runs that had chances to be successful. But I have one more buy or sell I want to get into here before we get into the end of the show. And it is this game coming up against the Kansas City Chiefs. We know it's a huge game. Is it a must win for the Chargers to make the playoffs, or it is a must win to make the playoffs? Are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, so with this one, I think this is one of the 3 games, on the schedule that I see that are going to be really, really difficult games to win. This Kansas City Chiefs game, the Miami Dolphins game, and the Tennessee Titans game. I think of the 8 games that are remaining, those 3 are extremely difficult. So if the Chargers are able to go 5-3 in those games, that's them losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. That just doesn't give them a lot of wiggle room. But they'd have to go 5-3 to finish at 10-7, and I think that's probably the bare minimum win requirement to be able to get to the playoffs. So I don't think it's a must win. So I'm gonna sell the fact that it's a must win, but it does make your propositions of getting to the playoffs a lot more difficult, and you do have less wiggle room. This would be a huge one if they're able to get
Yeah.
this win. It would be fantastic because it isn't an in division AFC West win, and those wins count as double.
Yeah, I mean, it would give you a chance to go 5-1 inside the division, which would be
Yes,
awesome,
would be
obviously.
great.
But if the Chargers lose this game, they're 5-5, right? That means you got to
Yeah,
go 5-2 down the stretch. I agree with you. The Dolphins and Titans, those are the 2 games. And okay, let's count those as losses, right? Let's
right.
count this game as a loss coming up against the Chiefs. That's your 7 losses to get to 10 wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means you'd have to go undefeated against the Cardinals, Raiders, Colts, Rams, and Broncos. I like the Chargers in each of those individual matchups one-on-one,
Yeah.
and they would have a good chance to win each of those games.
Yes.
Winning all 5 of those games, I don't have any confidence in that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. To me, I think for the Chargers to make the playoffs this year, they need to win one of those 3 games, whether it's the
Yes.
Chiefs, whether it's the Dolphins, whether it's the Titans, to give them the wiggle room needed to make the playoffs towards the end, because crazy stuff can happen. They will lose one of those 5 games. Mark my words. I think they need to win one of those big 3 games we don't think that they can win right now. So
Yeah.
this necessarily isn't a must-win game, but I do think the Chargers must win one of those 3 games. If they
I
do that,
agree.
they'll put themselves in a great position to win. It's going to be tough, though, because every single week we're adding names onto the injury report. And this week, the Chargers lost Atito Abonia and Christian Covington for the season after losing Austin Johnson for the season last week. So we're going to talk about the improved Chargers run defense being heavily deflated by a couple more guys headed to the injured reserve list and some defensive things coming up right after this. But much more important topic, Bill Barr has come out with a ridiculous list of new flavors that I've been thinking about this entire show. I can't believe I've held it together long enough. These are the new flavors at Built.com, the best protein bar on the planet. Cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper. Now, I know those all sound delicious, and they are, because you can actually get a mix box and get all of these new flavors. There's a pro tip for you. The holiday flavors are out. I'm talking white chocolate peppermint granola. It's built to take on the granola bar, and it's much more filling and insanely tasty. And candy cane brownie. The holidays are here, folks. It's time to get in on it because Built Bar has the best tasting protein bars on the planet that are also great for you. If you want to feel like you're eating a candy bar while also getting something that fits on your diet, if you're trying to find the unicorn of food land, you go to built.com, get you something that tastes good and is also good for you because they have 17 grams of protein, shockingly low sugar and calories, only 130 calories, while also being low on carbs as well. They're great for keto diets and whatever diet you're on, pretty much for the most part. The magical time is now, guys. Make sure you guys go to built.com and try out all of these new flavors. Get that mix box. Find out which one is your favorite. You got to try this. Go get 15% off your guys' order. You can even save some money right now since you listen to this show. Go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15 to save 15% off your order. Well, let's continue this buy or sell here, David, with some good and some bad from this last game. Let's start with the good. Let's make it, a little easier on people. And I think the good, one of the silver linings from this game was the Chargers' run improvement. But no, you know what? We have to start with this. I mean, the Chargers lost two dudes, two more dudes
Yeah.
on the defensive line. You lost to Tito Abonia, who honestly surpassed my expectations of him coming out of UCLA
I
as a
agree. I'm
fifth-round pick.
co-signing as well. Yeah.
He was at least very tough to move out of the way. And I
Yeah.
think you could see why the Chargers wanted to, bring him in and to develop him because, I mean,
Yeah.
even just the improvements he's made since training camp to where we've seen him before he got injured.
Big.
Huge. He is a ruptured patella tendon. He's out for the season. Christian Covington has a torn pectoral. He is likely out for the year, in Brandon Staley's words.
Just sad.
You just lost Austin Johnson last week. Maybe
Yeah.
addition by subtraction, but definitely a subtraction of a body in that room in Jerry Tillery, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's desperate. Like, that's one of the things, when we're talking about the Chargers lost this game due to injuries, is just they literally had a front with 4 defensive tackles and 2 edge rushers. We talked about it going into this week, right? When we were talking about our keys, like bringing out that formation they used against the Falcons, 4 down linemen, Derwin James on the edge, Khalil Mack on the other edge.
Yeah.
They literally, by the end of the game, David did not have enough bodies to actually run that formation. Like, think about Madden, goal line front, goal line package. That's what the Chargers were kind of missing in this game by the end of it. So the buy or sell is this. The Chargers will add at least one defensive free agent defensive tackle this week.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. And, and the reason why it's easy to do that is because Brandon Staley said that they were going to do that.
Don't hear that often.
Yeah. In the media availability that was released, the Zoom call he does on Mondays, he said on depth along the defensive line, we'll have to work through that over the next 36 hours. We'll probably be making some acquisitions and then promote DL Joe Gaziano at some point this week. We have him currently on our team. We will be working over the next 36 hours to make a couple of acquisitions to get up to full strength. So that just tells you right there that the Chargers are going to be adding bodies. They have to. I mean, you lose 3 guys in your defensive line rotation group. I mean, hey, shout out to Sebastian Joseph Day and Braden Fehoko and Morgan Fox. Those guys played pretty much the entire fourth quarter, and they played admirably. I mean, that's a position group that really relies on rotation to keep those bodies fresh, and they just could not do that. So the Chargers have to go out there and get some guys to fill in that room.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy buy or sell because they don't really have a choice. And the head coach is saying, hey, there's going to be moves here. This is where I guess part of the bad news, the worst news comes in. Don't get your hopes up for Ndamukong Suh. Right. I think that's kind of what the message I want to get across to people. It's like, look for more of a Jeremiah Tauchu, Derek Tuska level free agent defensive tackle.
They ain't got the money, folks. They ain't got the money.
Well, yeah, and it's just like, I mean, they've already kind of showed you the type of moves they're trying to make, adding Michael Jaquette as a corner. Like, it's just that's kind of where the Chargers are at and where their off-season or in-season additions have kind of been so far this year.
Yeah.
But they will add players. I just think that they're going to be practice squad players. I don't think they're going to be any of these big-name free agents that are kind of still sitting at home, waiting for a team to call.
I'd be surprised. Yeah.
I do like the potential of Joe Gaziano, though, as far as an interior pass rusher, because even with the improvements the Chargers have made a defensive tackle this year, the interior pass rush outside of Morgan Fox, I would say, has not been good.
Yeah.
But I did think there was a silver lining to take away from that last game, David, which was, I mean, even with the Chargers getting as banged up as they were, the Chargers defense actually showed pretty good improvement in run defense in this game.
Yeah, I agree. And, they did a lot better than I expected them to. I mean, going into this game, this one was the strength going up against the weakness. The San Francisco 49ers, exotic rushing, attack coming at you at all different angles with all different players. And they tried, but the Chargers did a really good job of getting really creative in this game defensively, really mixing up, the schemes and the coverages, and they were effective. They only allowed 3.8 yards per carry on the ground. They didn't allow any 40 plus yard rushes, and by proxy no 50 plus yard rushes, thank God. The longest run on the day was 15 yards, so there was a lot of jabs in there, a lot of 6, 7, 8 yard runs mixed in. But overall, just from beginning to end, you look at the end product, the run defense was much better, and it was not the reason why the Chargers lost the game. So you have to definitely take that as a positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was much more in this game. I'm definitely buying that you saw improvement, and I think Brandon Staley deserves a ton of credit too. I
Yeah,
know that people aren't trying to credit Brandon Staley for many things, but like he said that he executed the best game plan he ever has as a defensive coach, and I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, I'm not watching every one of his games or have that kind of database off the top of my head, but like
right.
I can't argue with them too much because I did think they had a pretty incredible game plan. And I mean, they held the San Francisco 49ers to under 4 yards per carry, obviously. It got worse in the second half when they started
Yeah,
losing dudes, right? They only allowed 3.2 yards per carry in the first half and only allowed 50 yards. They allowed
that's
107
great.
in
Yeah.
the second half, right? When, and they were on the field for 40 plus plays.
Oh
So
yeah, it was brutal.
Brandon Staley is coming. He's not just sitting there, right? Like he's
Right.
bringing out 4 defensive linemen fronts. He's putting Derwin James on the edge. Like he's trying to push all
He's
the right
doing
buttons.
everything he can. Yeah.
He's making all the adjustments he possibly can. He deserves a lot of credit for it because the problem wasn't that they couldn't stop the run. I mean, credit to the 49ers who stuck with it. I mean, I would have given Debo Samuel probably 10 more carries in the game. But at the
Yeah.
same time, though, like they stuck with it. They ran the ball 41 times in that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And I think for the Chargers being such a bad matchup, you would take that. You would take that going in 3.8, 100%. And I think
Yeah.
really what screwed them defensively was getting the stops on early downs and then just not being able to come away with those third and longs,
Yes.
David. Like at the end of the
Yes.
day, that's really what did it because they got
Right.
themselves in a lot of favorable third down situations where they just couldn't get off the field.
Right. And that's what I was talking about earlier. It's just
Yeah.
so crippling. You get in those situations where you are supposed to have the advantage defensively. You are supposed to be able to get them off the field and be able to give your offense another opportunity. Now, unfortunately, the offense was kind of futile in the second half. They were getting shut down, but
Very
you
few.
never know what's going to happen. But that's what sucked in this game.
Yeah.
You saw the Chargers get into the situations where, okay, you got a loss, or hey, you stopped him on a short run. Okay, cool. Now it's time to see that exotic blitz package. Get there, get after the quarterback, and get off the field. And they just couldn't do it, and they couldn't do it to the tune of like 5 third and longs. They just could not get off the field.
Yeah, and Brandon Staley talked about it too. He's like, "Hey, we had 3 drives with 3 third and 6 pluses,
Yeah,
and some of those we had really tight coverage, and some of
yeah,
them they did, and they made some really good plays." But he did point out, the one Jawan Jennings where you have a tackle before the first down marker and you can't make it. That's a huge play.
yeah.
And then you also have the all-out blitz where the blitz just doesn't get home in time and
Right.
leaves a big hole in the middle of the defense, right? Because you basically cover 0 at that point, sending
Right. Yeah. You,
everybody.
you took a chance, and I'm all right with that one. You took the chance. It just didn't work out.
And that also leads me to this, David, where it's like I'm not even sure if that is the biggest problem with the Chargers right now is their run defense. I think the much bigger problem is the pass rush. Because I think
Yeah.
the biggest thing is hey, you had to bring a cover 0 blitz to try to get a for sure pressure against
Right.
the San Francisco 49ers. So like I think that's something where that is really, really hurting this defense because the run defense is coming through, getting the 49ers, not a great passing attack, but a passing attack who has plenty of weapons, obviously.
Come back, Joey. Please come back.
100%. But you just didn't have the pass rush once you got into those favorable matchups to
Yeah.
force enough pressure to, make Jimmy G throw it away.
That's
Like when
exactly right.
Khalil Mack did get there,
Yeah.
they were bad. Like the 49ers totally fell apart every time
Mhm.
Khalil Mack,
Yeah.
was breathing down Jimmy G's neck. It just,
That's true.
he can't do it by himself. Every
Right.
team knows where they have to help him, right? And it's just you're
And
not
he's
getting
been
enough
phenomenal
consistent
too.
pressure.
You know, Mac's been fantastic. He just can't do it all on its
He
own,
has 7
all on
sacks.
his own. That's
Yeah.
why, it's going to be great when Joey comes back, because then, you can really see the vision unfold that you had before the season started of having those guys tear quarterbacks' heads off.
Yeah, the dude's on pace for like 12, 13 sacks this year. He's been as
Should be
advertised.
fantastic. Yeah.
And he's doing a lot of this without Joey Bosa on the other side to really get him favorable matchups. I mean, you can't say enough about Khalil Mack. You just wonder where this team would be without him and Derwin James,
Oh,
right?
man.
Who derailed 2 49ers drives and single-handedly took them off the field twice.
Yeah.
One with Khalil Mack on one series, a sack and a pressure that made it 3rd and 20. And then Derwin James forcing a fumble with Asante Samuel Jr. throwing Brandon Ayuk into him. That was a fun play as well. And the Chargers just getting on top of a fumble.
Yes.
Great to see. But
Yeah.
that is going to wrap things up for today's show. We will be back here tomorrow, guys, for our Chargers mailbag, the Wednesday mailbag. Make sure you guys are hitting us up and putting your questions in so you guys can get them answered on tomorrow's show. You can do that here by subscribing to our Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. Put your question in the comments and we can get it on the show. You can also hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnLAC. And you can also find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer on Twitter at DroTalkSD. His DMs are always open. You can DM him with your question as well. You can also hit us up on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, and you can also hit us up on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We also have a voicemail line that you guys can call into if you want to call in. Get a 30-second question in to get it on tomorrow's show. You can call in at 323-524-7924, and we'll try to get as many of those on the show tomorrow as we possibly can. But thank you guys so much for making us your first listen today. If you guys need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today, which has the biggest stories going on around the entire sports world, including the hot take of the day. So make sure you're checking that out wherever you get your podcast from, because just like this one, you can find it anytime for free, available every day, wherever you get your podcast from, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever. But we'll be back here tomorrow, guys, with our Chargers mailbag and the latest Chargers news. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.